Hello everyone, this is Lawrence. I'm making another video. I didn't make one for the last few days because I was trying to think of a theme or an idea for a video, and this one popped in my head. Going back to the contest of the best three female artists that I was involved in. That was a very fun contest. And I chose three from what I call the classic vocal era. If you want to watch that video, it's on this page here. But I'm building on that. And what I'm doing is I'm going to show you in my CD collection all my all the artists who I consider to be the great female vocal artists of the classic vocal era of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, and also some newer people here that's more current, okay? Little brief explanation. In the 1990s, I was a rock and roll popular music person, but in the 1990s, I sort of become a little dissatisfied with what was going on in mainstream music, and I thought it would be a good time to venture off into listening to classic music from my parents' era, the big band, the development of jazz, and the classic vocal era, which I consider to be in the era of the 1930s and 40s and 50s, the Bing Crosbys, the Frank Sinatras, the Tony Bennettts, the Billie Holidays, the Lena Hornes, the Ella Fitzgeralds, and the list goes on. And these vocalists had great vocals, talent. But not only that, they just didn't just sing the notes. They sung from in here, the heart. They could really interpretate the lyrics and feelings of the songs. Okay, I mean, you can have a vocalist that just can sing the notes very nicely, but it's another thing to articulate it with the emotions and power that the song calls for. That's why I like to refer to great vocal singing like that is vocal art. Okay, so what I have here, which I'm going to share with you, it's in the case here. I have nothing against CDs, and I also have such artists on vinyl as well, but I chose to do the CDs, and in the future I'm going to do a separate video on the vinyl I have, okay? And this was easier to carry in the room also. In my search discovery of the music from the bygone era, I started, collecting CDs, buying them from stores. This was when CDs were, the dominant force in buying music. And later thrift stores as well, accumulated a collection of classic female vocal artists. Okay, so I'm going to start by showing you what I have. Sometimes I'll have to put on my glasses, my reading glasses. And we'll start with the Queen, Lady Day, as she became known as. Someone who I consider the best female singer from that time. She was not the most technical, school singer in a technical sense. Her range was somewhat limited, but she made up for this with her phrasing and her expression, and the way sometimes she can emulate the an instrument. I mean, her vocals was an instrument, and also um, it wasn't like when she went to record, she was just handed sheet music. Okay, we're going to do it this way. She worked with the musicians. Um, so, having said that, I'm going to show you the CDs I have of her, and I'm talking about the late and great Billie Holiday. And these are part of the Columbia Jazz Master Series. You can see it stamped right up there. And there's more of these. I just happen to have these two. This is covers from 1937 to 1938, 1933 to 1935. I'm not going into the history of each of these artists. I want to keep this video, at a good time. I don't want it to run way long. But whenever I see the Columbia Jazz Masterpiece series, I always get them, and I want to complete my collection. This was when her early years, and her voice was in full swing, or the richness and the tone was really there. Then we'll go into this one right here. Is part of the Ken Burns jazz series. That was a documentary that aired on PBS, and this box set, CD box set, it's not the DVD of the documentary, but it's the CD box set, which I got, and this is a great box set booklet, along with 5 CDs. This is wonderful because it goes down the history of jazz and all the most important recordings. And there's other, documentary type of albums and CD releases of the history of jazz. But I really like this one right here, and they've got Lady Day right there. The Mount Rushmore of jazz artists throughout the ages. So this one right here, along with that box series, they feature every artist, 2 or 3 or 4 of their songs, but they also released, as part of the series, each artist, or selective artists, the major ones, they put out a separate CD of their work as well, a compilation. So I have Billie Holiday, Ken Burns Jazz. I got a number of these too. I'm working on getting the entire collection. So this covers her years with Columbia. Not Columbia. CBS Records, and going into the Verve years. So glad to have that. Later, and this is where I think she really, really blossom. These are compilations of the recordings she did with Verve, 1948 through the 50s, and this is where I think she really came into her own as far as the depth of the songs, of expressing those. And she had a very hard life, so with her experiences of a life that was very, very, it was not a happy life, battling substances, abusive relationships, and of course the discrimination really took a toll on her. But in her later years, it was a voice that was mature, that she lived the songs, let's just say. So I have the Verve years here. This is her last full recording, 1958, I think, Lady in Satin, and many consider this her best album. And this is like a deluxe version with, outtakes and all that. Here, it's all the tracks are like with string arrangements, and that's what these vocals love. The vocalists love are strings, and you can see on the back. At this stage, her voice had been worn out through years of substances. I won't go into that, but it lost some of its pitch, and it was kind of more gravelly. But the depth of her singing, her phrasing, the feel was like it was never before. And when the producers listened to the album initially, they were disappointed. But when they listened to it again, they were amazed, because the first time around they were listening to it on a technical end. Second time they were listening with the heart, So this was her last recording. This is on Columbia Records Legendary Series. Okay, so that's Billie Holiday. I do have one more of her live at Carnegie Hall, which is cool. Okay, I spent a lot of time on Billie, so we're going to kind of zoom here. My other favorite is Dinah Washington. This lady just had a voice unreal. It was powerful. It is said she could play a big hall, a big room without a microphone, and her voice just would project right up to the last person in the back row. These two. And her music encompasses not only jazz but R&B, some pop. Unfortunately, she lived a very fast-paced lifestyle, and she did a lot. There's a YouTube documentary on her, and I would suggest you watch it. She kind of lived a wild life, but she was a perfectionist with her work, with her music. And she was very unforgiving if you mess up. It wasn't too many times she'd give you a second chance. September in the Rain. Go to YouTube and listen to her sing that. It's kind of a very bouncy piano type of song, and it has some great imagery on it. Ella Fitzgerald, not Era, sings ballads. This is the only CD I got from her, but I got a number of albums too. Certainly on the Mount Rushmore of classic female jazz singers, along with Sarah Vaughan. So, what a voice there. She can go really deep with her voice. It's just amazing. Here's another female vocalist who I was not a big fan of, but she influenced a lot of other female vocalists, and her name is June Christy. And she's pretty good. I like her. It's just not my go-to. Okay, moving on. Peggy Lee. This is a Capitol Records compilation. It's very good. And after she left Capitol, she went to was signed with the Verb label, the jazz label, and did this album of standards, Black Coffee. This is very good. I always loved Peggy Lee. She had a very reframed, sensual tone to her voice. Okay, our next one is Anita O'Day. She was a big with the she was popular with the big bands, and Gene Krupa, if I pronounce his name right, she was part of his band. And here's a compilation of females, and this is called the singers. So you got females and male singers on this one, but Anita's on the cover here. And I'm going to stop for a minute and show you something else real quick. Me being a vinyl collector, I was very lucky to find these two albums at a thrift store, really cheap, mint condition, shrink wrap still on them. I'll show you the artwork, and I just showed you that CD. I got it on the album now. This is part of the Columbia Jazz Masterpiece series. This one's the singers, the 1940s. The singers, again, the 1950s. So, it all ties in. And this is a good series. Great information on the back on who plays on what, recording dates, and the artists, and little historical perspective liner notes. Okay, continue on with the CD. So I got on Verb compilation Anita O'Day. She was a really wild one, and a nonconformist. She would not dress in the nice gown. She dressed the way she wanted to, and was had some artistical control over the way she sang. And here's another compilation from her. This is the Polygram Jazz series. Okay, the next one is a great singer who's not really too much associated with jazz, more like musicals, Broadway tunes, the Great American Songbook. And we all know her as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, and I'm talking about Judy Garland. She starred in the second remaking of A Star is Born, 1953 or 4 or 2, somewhere in that era. And I've seen the movie about 3 times, and I've more than that. I always enjoyed watching it for the music scenes. It's in short, it's a musical drama, and I thought her version of it was the best. I know there was one in the 1930s, and then her version, and then the 70s with Barbra Streisand, and the recent one with Lady Gaga. So, it's sort of like a franchise now. This is a great movie. If you can get a hold of it or see it on Netflix, then try to do that. A lot of great singing, dancing, and drama. And then the London years. This was a recording she made in London, and I think she was at her best here. She had overcome substance abuse for a while, for a period. She got had problems with the pills and alcohol, but she cleaned up, and her voice sounds marvelous. I mean, she's an unbelievable singer, and these recordings are magnificent. So Judy Garland, The London Sessions, it's called. And then here's a live album she did at Carnegie Hall that won the Grammy for the best album, 1962, I think. This is on 2 CDs, anniversary reissue, digital makeover and all that. If you ever want to listen to a great live album of American standards and Broadway stuff, this is it. She's just magnificent, and her voice is strong. And this was recorded April 23rd, 1961, and it's too bad they didn't get it on film. That would have been magnificent. One last one from her, the classic Judy. This covers her entire career, movies, soundtracks, everything. There's about 38 tracks on here, along with booklets, retro booklets. I'm not going to pronounce her name, but she made famous the song. She did the vocals for the song "Girl from Ipanema." If I pronounced it right, probably did not. I have trouble with the names. So this is really good. I got to run in the room real quick because I forgot a CD that wasn't included with this box. So just give me a moment. It's just the next room over. Okay, I'm heading back. Okay, as long as we're on singers who are not Americans, I'm sure a lot of you heard of Edith Piaf, if I pronounce that one right. Edith is one of my all-time favorite singers, and although she sang in French, when you listen to it, you kind of understand what she's saying. It's the emotions that counts. Also, French is a very beautiful language, but I didn't realize how beautiful it was until I heard Edith sing it. And this is a 2 CD set as well with retrospective booklet. She was absolutely an amazing talent, and I listen to her quite often. Okay, we're going to wrap this up. Let me check and see how we're doing on the time. Oh, 23 minutes. Okay. Nancy Wilson, who recently died. She was a great vocalist. Somebody knew her. Diane Krall. And this is a really great CD. It really is. Very talented vocalist, jazz pianist, and a few more of her CDs. This one's really good too. And the last one. I don't like that cover. It looks like too much like Captain Tennille type of cover, but good CD. Someone more associated with today's popular music, but who has like a classic vocal feel, and that's Adele. And I got her other album on vinyl. Eva Cassidy, who left us much too soon. She died of cancer. She was a pianist, vocalist of popular songs and jazz and standards. It just left us way too soon. Going into more of soul and R&B, Etta James. Someone who was a daughter of a famous singer and jazz musician, Natalie Cole, and we all know about this album, a tribute to her dad. And lastly, a vocalist who's very much alive and young and active and touring. If you never heard of her, I would suggest you go and on YouTube and listen to her music. Liz Wright, a friend turned me on to her, and she's absolutely magnificent. She's more of combination of jazz, soul, R&B, and blues, and she just has a magnificent emotional voice. Okay, so that's my showing of the classic female vocalists through the classic vocal era and some modern people too. I'll do a separate video, the vinyl as well, although I did show two. I appreciate you watching this video. It turned out much longer than what I thought, but there was a lot to show here, a lot of great artists, and I wish I could spend more time on each. Maybe I'll do separate videos to spotlight individual ones separately. Thank you for watching. If you leave a comment, I really appreciate it. Especially if you want to subscribe to my channel, that would be great too. I want to wish everyone a nice day. Bye-bye.